The Mongols were one of the most powerful empires in human history, having terrorized Eastern Europe, taken over China, the wealthiest country in Asia, and battled the Mamluks in Egypt, in addition to conquering Baghdad. They were also the largest contiguous land empire in the world. Despite these impressive achievements and their fearsome reputation, however, the Mongols were unable to conquer India. What were the reasons that prevented the Mongols? Was it because they lacked the resources, or were they concerned about the possibility of facing resistance from the Indian Empire? This video will explore the actual factors that played a role in their decision not to invade India. Mongol Empire. The Mongol Empire had a maximum territory of 9 million square miles. They ruled over a fifth of the world's population. The Mongols were pastoral nomads who tended sheep, goats, horses, camels, and yaks across the Asian steppe. These tribes were nomadic and resided in gurs, which were temporary camps made of circular felt tents. Mongol tribes were then highly mobile by nature, used to a hard life, and taught from an early age to ride horses and fire bows. These traits would enable them to become superb soldiers who could withstand protracted and difficult campaigns, swiftly cover large areas of ground, and survive on the barest essentials. Even the women's role in setting up camps and carrying out transportation duties aided the Mongol army by giving their husbands' troops the necessary logistical support. The Empire of Mongol was a formidable force in history, famous for its exceptional military strategy and tactics, as well as its ruthless warriors who were often referred to as the Horsemen of the Devil. Their reputation for being an unbeatable fighting force was well earned, as they could easily dispatch enemy cavalry, swordsmen, and archers using their lancers, and no technology or weapon could match them. Although led by lowly steppe villagers, they were prosperous because they were skilled at using the latest technology available. All of these conflicts were embodied in the Mongol Empire, which eventually grew to become the second largest kingdom in history. Genghis Khan, also known as Chinggis Khan, established the Mongol Empire, which he ruled from 1206 until his death in 1227, previously referred to as Temujin, but later became known as Genghis Khan, which probably means universal ruler. He was a brilliant warrior and tyrant who united all the Mongolian nomadic tribes under his and his family's control in a strict military state after beginning his rule in obscurity and insignificance. He then began a series of campaigns of pillage and conquest that eventually carried the Mongol armies as far as the Adriatic Sea in one direction and the Pacific coast of China in the other, leading to the establishment of the Great Mongol Empire. Millions of innocent people, according to medieval chroniclers, were killed in his terror operations because of his utter brutality toward his enemies. The primary weapon of Mongol armies was cavalry, which gave them a tremendous degree of mobility and speed. Signals and a well-run messenger service controlled their actions and movements. When engaged in combat, they mostly used bows and arrows and only switched to man-to-man combat once the enemy's numbers had been dispersed. Mongol tactics and weapons were better suited to broad plains and level terrain than to mountainous and forested areas. They frequently enlisted the help of artisans and engineers from technologically sophisticated captured peoples, such as the Chinese, Persians, and Arabs, to assist in the siege of walled cities. The clever employment of spies and propaganda was another aspect that contributed to the resounding success of their campaigns. In most cases, they made an offer of peace and requested a voluntary surrender before attacking. The people were protected if this was agreed to. However, if the opposition had to be defeated, it was always followed by mass execution or at the very least enslavement, sparing only individuals whose unique talents or skills were deemed beneficial. Chinggis's military tactics revealed his proficiency in combat. The faked withdrawal was one of Genghis's favorite strategies. He would have his soldiers depart the area pretending to have lost, although they were still fighting. The enemy forces would immediately understand that they had fallen into a trap as they pursued the troops that appeared to be fleeing because entire detachments of men in armor or cavalries would arrive out of nowhere and overpower them. Invasion to India. One of the richest nations in history, India, was located across the river, a country that produced more than a third of the global GDP. A place where potential invaders fantasized about setting foot. Northern India was dominated at the time by Shams-ud-Din Iltutmish, the third sultan of the Turkic Mamluk dynasty. From 1221 to 1327, the Mongol Empire launched a number of invasions into the Indian subcontinent. Millions of people were killed as a result of the Mongols' destruction of cities and wreaking havoc on the Indian people during this time. Their goals were simple and clear. It was to extract tributes and wealth from the nations they had conquered, as well as to take from them the most advanced technology and the most attractive women for their harem, and the strongest men for their army. Prior to launching an attack on a nation, they would insist that the country fulfill all of these requirements. Before really attacking any nation, they would demand all of this from that country. In total, the Chagatai Khanate's Mongols invaded India 4 times, in 1241, 1245, 1257, and 1285. The Delhi Sultanate, which repelled these assaults, is said to have recorded this in the past. Earlier than that, Jalaluddin, the predecessor of the Delhi Sultanate, had to withstand a Mongol invasion. The Khwarezmian Empire, 1216 to 1221. The Khwarezmian Empire, which today's Pakistan and Afghanistan were part of, was conquered by the Mongols for the first time in India in 1221. A series of raids by Mongol soldiers into India began with this invasion. The Mongols mostly attacked prosperous, densely populated areas like Delhi and other important commerce centers. During their invasions, they not only looted the wealth from these settlements, but also killed tens of thousands of people. From 1219 to 1221, the Mongols invaded Khwarezmia. The Turco-Persian Empire, which could brag of having a sizable horse army, had made several provocative movements against the Mongol Empire. It is said that Shah Muhammad II, emperor of the Khwarezmian Empire, assassinated a trade delegation that Genghis Khan had dispatched to the Persian regions after humiliating them first. In reality, the Mongol Empire had no intention of attacking the Khwarezmid Empire at first. Juvayni, who is a Persian historian and an official of the Mongol state, claims that Genghis Khan first addressed Sultan Muhammad Aladdin, the ruler of the Khwarezmid Empire, with a letter greeting him on being on an equal footing and stating, "We now have the obligations of neighbors. Human wisdom requires that both sides walk the path of concord and observe the duties of friendship." However, the governor of Otrar rejected the mission and, with Sultan's approval, had all 450 of them executed. Months later, when Genghis Khan learned of this tragedy, he was so furious that he invaded using it as a justification. The Mongol commander gathered between 90,000 and 200,000 warriors and launched his invasion of Khwarezmian territory in the year 1219, furious at such provocations. Cities like Khorasan, Herat, and Nishapur were utterly destroyed by the Mongols, who left a vast trail of destruction in the years that followed. Juvayni claims that although the Mongols only carried out a single wave of executions in Khwarezm and Transoxiana, they systematically wiped out a significant number of the populations in the cities of Khorasan. As a result, the Mongols gained a reputation for being ruthless and bloodthirsty, which would characterize the rest of their campaigns. The fallen Khwarezmian emperor was now within striking distance of Genghis Khan and his great Mongol army. It would have been easy for them to march into India, capture Jalal al-Din, and even capture the Delhi Sultanate. Genghis Khan, however, decided against doing so. His refusal to use his army, which at the time was the most powerful and lethal fighting force in the world, against India, has baffled historians for many centuries. Having come so close to India's boundaries, why did Genghis Khan decide to turn around and withdraw all the way back to Mongolia? Bad omen, talking rhinoceros. After his remarkable victory over the Khwarezmian Empire, several academics and historians think that a terrible omen might have discouraged the Mongol commander from entering the Indian subcontinent. Temujin, as Genghis Khan was known at that time, was raised as a lowly nomad in the foothills of Mongolia and learned to admire nature in all its splendor from those around him. But after his father was killed, Temujin's normal life was snatched away from him. From that point on, his life would be marked by gore and bloodshed, as well as a steadfast faith in nature that he had cultivated over the years. Yelu Kuchai, a self-described mystic of sorts, was one of the only persons whose life Genghis Khan personally spared when he conquered China. As their relationship became stronger over time, Kuchai joined Genghis's envoy whenever the Mongols went on a campaign. One of Kukai's responsibilities was to discern signs and omens and explain their meanings to Genghis. Given that his lord was a conqueror, Kuchai frequently watered his readings to provide the Khan with binary choices in response to his one and only question of whether he would win the fight he was about to engage in. Over the course of the Mongols' conquests of Asia and Europe, almost all of Kuchai's prophecies came true, earning the Khan's blind faith in him. According to Chinese tale, Genghis Khan spoke at length with Kukai about his misgivings about invading India a fortnight after the battle on the Indus River. Then, in the middle of the night, when the Khan had fallen asleep and Kukai was the only person awake in the Mongol camp, a mysterious white animal on a unicorn dashed toward him. According to mythology, the creature spoke with Kukai and advised him to warn Genghis Khan to stay away from India if he wanted to preserve his legendary undefeated run of wins. Kukai told Genghis about the encounter the following morning, and he made the decision to go back home without giving it any thought. According to other versions, the evil omen manifested itself as a talking rhinoceros. The objective monitoring of regional affairs by the Delhi Sultanate. The foreign policy of the Delhi Sultanate's leaders is reported to have greatly pleased Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was only left alone by the Indian emperors during his invasion of China and Persia. In addition, Shah Jalal al-Din, the fleeing ruler of Khwarazm, was refused any protection or assistance by the rulers of the Delhi Sultanate. The Turco-Persian king assembled what remained of his disheartened bodyguards and escaped into the Delhi Sultanate in 1221 after suffering a terrible loss at the Battle of the Indus. He was stunned to find that the Indian kings there, with whom he had some cultural ties, made no offers to provide him refuge or assistance with the troops. Delhi King Iltutmish, like Inalchuk and Muhammad II, had heard accounts of the Mongols' brutal nihilism. Therefore, he was aware of the Khwarezmian-Mongol battle and terrified of Genghis Khan's wrath falling upon the Sultanate. He believed that turning down Genghis's enemy's request for refuge would help avert danger. Genghis Khan had no motive to invade India because the Turkic Mamluk kings of northern India kept their excellent relations with him by refraining from interfering with the Mongol conquest of the area. According to some sources, Delhi King Iltutmish paid the Mongols extravagant tributes to deter them from approaching India. Then why didn't Genghis Khan go after Jalal ad-Din and kill him? The simple explanation is that Jalal ad-Din had nothing left to lose after his empire and army were shattered. He was no longer an entity. He just remained a Shah in the name. He would never pose a serious threat once more. Even more significantly, when there was a Chinese betrayal to revenge, pursuing him after his army was wiped out was futile. India's harsh heat and humidity. The fact that the Mongols were aware of the practical boundaries of what their force could and could not do contributed to their extraordinary success. The weather in India is completely different from the weather in Mongolia. As opposed to chilly and dry, that is hot and wet. In most of India, Genghis Khan's troops, horses and men, would have endured excruciating suffering. The Macedonian conqueror Alexander the Great, who was also within touching distance of India in 326 BC, may have been stopped in his tracks for the same reason that Genghis Khan refrained from attacking that country. Scholars assert that the Mongol army found it challenging to march on the Delhi Sultanate due to the extremely warm and muggy weather in India. Remember that the Mongols were not accustomed to India's occasionally severe weather because they were from a chilly climate. The Mamluk rulers of India, like the Mongols, came from a somewhat cool climate, which is the counter-argument to this reason. And if the Mamluks managed to conquer India despite the oppressive heat and humidity, why couldn't Genghis Khan's far more deadly army conquer India? Due to their extreme sensitivity to humidity, Mongolian bows were essentially worthless in the hot environment of India. In this situation, range and power deteriorated greatly. The Mongolians and their horses' bodies weren't adapted to the weather, which caused them to become ill. Mongols' adherents to several religions. The majority of the Mongols who lived in India were Tibetan Buddhists. This is due to the fact that the Mongol Empire, under the leadership of Genghis Khan, had conquered Tibet in the 13th century, and that particularly under Kublai Khan, its rulers had come to prefer Tibetan Buddhism above other types of Buddhism. It was also widely recognized that Buddhism, which originated in India, had a long history of influence in Mongolia. Even Genghis Khan's grandson Kublai Khan took up Buddhism, making it nearly the official state religion throughout his rule. This influence led numerous Mongol warriors and kings to the Indian subcontinent, where they adopted Tibetan Buddhism as their main religion. As a result, some historians say that Genghis Khan refrained from invading India purely out of respect for the country as the home of two important religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, which he revered. However, the Mamluk emperors of India at the time did not regard those religions with the same degree of devotion. Actually, the Turkic Mamluks were notorious for persecuting Buddhists and Hindus in their lands. These two religions were to be exterminated in Afghanistan and India. Why then didn't Genghis Khan invade India, overthrow those rulers, and then ensure the safety of Buddhists and Hindus? Genghis Khan may have considered the countless innocent Indians who would have perished in the event of an invasion, many of whom were Buddhists and Hindus. The vengeful mentality of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan engaged in a number of military campaigns, and upon short inspection, one soon discerned a faint pattern among them. Some have said that the warlord primarily attacked a territory in order to exact vengeance. The ruthless conquest of the Khwarezmian Empire was primarily undertaken as revenge for the Shah ruler's repeated provocations. He even invaded the Karkitai Empire in retribution for the destruction of a Mongol city and the murder of his grandson-in-law. He attacked the Jin Empire and the Western Xia Empire in retribution for the murder of his relative Ambagai and for centuries of Chinese intrusion and crimes. He invaded the Western Xia once more as a consequence of their betrayal. Khan's conquests were usually motivated by retaliation. He only engaged in combat when there were adequate reasons to do so. Genghis Khan could have easily crossed the Indus River after his stunning victory over the Khwarezmian Empire at the Battle of Indus in 1221 and destroyed the Delhi Sultanate of India, a very rich region. He could have done it, but he decided against it for a variety of reasons, primary among them being his good relations with the northern Indian kings. Genghis Khan was thought to be a moral leader who had no grudges against the Delhi Sultanate. He had not been wronged by the Indians in any manner, shape, or form. He thus lacked a convincing motive to violate his morals and conquer India. Rebellion in China. One probable explanation for the Mongol army's decision not to invade India is the fact that they learned of an enormous revolt against their rule in Western Xia in China just as they were about to cross the Indus River. Genghis Khan was forced to delay his invasion of the subcontinent in order to put an end to such uprisings. Genghis Khan had a lot on his plate at the moment, thus the invasion was essentially postponed rather than suspended. After returning to China with his forces, Genghis Khan invaded the Western Xia Empire. By 1227, the area had been retaken. The Jin Empire had also rebelled against him, so he then made plans to invade it once more. Since Genghis Khan passed away in 1227 while putting an end to the revolt in Western Xia, it was his forebears who invaded India in 1241. In order to invade the Jin dynasty from the south, it has also been claimed that Genghis Khan sought a path through the Himalayas. To identify a suitable route, he thought about pushing across northern India. He gave up on the notion of conquering India when he was unable to find a route. India's military preparedness. Due to the Sultanate's military preparedness during Ghiyas-ud-Din Balban's 1266-1287 rule, the Mongols were mostly prevented from invading India. Balban took action to fortify his army after realizing the threat the Mongols represented. These actions included expanding recruitment and training, setting up infantry divisions, and creating horse detachments. In order to keep the Mongol forces from crossing the Indus River, which served as a natural barrier, he also constructed forts in key sites along the river's course. The Mongol assaults on India were prevented by enhanced defense. Because of the cessation of massive assaults, the Mongols were unable to cross the Indus River. View on wealth. The Mongol Empire possessed an abundance of wealth. Genghis Khan had a natural intuition that too much money would cause his people to lose their enthusiasm and unwavering discipline, which made them unique. He simply did not have a compelling enough cause to invade India, despite the fact that the rulers of Delhi had incredible wealth. Although India had a major power in the Sultanate and its wealth, Genghis was too wise to invade a country with such a fragmented political landscape as India, because even if he succeeded in seizing control of the Sultanate, other regional forces would be forced to attack Delhi and seize what they could, giving the Mongols more rivals to deal with. Conclusion summary. The Mongol invasions of India had a significant impact on the subcontinent's history. The Delhi Sultanate was never completely conquered by the Mongols, and they never acquired control of India. Men who currently rule Pakistan and Kashmir were free from Mongol dominance in 1235. Even though the two factions had some political relations, they were never united under a single monarch or administration. Due to the Mongols' ability to establish their presence and win control over local rulers in some areas, the Mongol invasions also caused a change in the balance of power in northern India. Despite the fact that the Mongols did not entirely conquer India, their incursions had a significant impact on its history and politics. By 1327, local authorities had joined together to fight back against them. However, despite this success, many regions are still working to recover from the effects of these invasions decades later. Overall, it is evident that the Mongol invasions were a disastrous event for India because they resulted in millions of deaths or evictions. These catastrophes also hindered India's economic development for centuries because a large portion of its infrastructure was destroyed during the time. Our channel, The History of the Ancient World, will be releasing more videos about historical facts, so make sure you are subscribed and hit the notification bell. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. We appreciate our patrons for making our videos possible, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.